So this story is about the night that I was at a family wedding, and I was just out of town, and my family was staying at the Holiday Inn, which if you've never been to the Holiday Inn before, it's a five-star hotel, American. And I decided on this evening that I was going to read my brother. And he was currently in college. And in a story earlier, I thought that I had met Phoebe in Rochester, which is an American town, home of Notre Dame, and also the college that my mother went to, which is St. Mary's College, an all-girls. Yeah. Anyways, we had toured the various South Bend bars to get ourselves all liquored up. We decided that we were going to go back to the Holiday Inn bar to finish in our way. Here's like now 1 o'clock. Family wedding is tomorrow, and at the time I was dating a long-distance girl. She was a soccer player. She had a soccer scholarship in Michigan. And we'll find out why she's bored later on in the story in this 5-minute icebreaker. And I also had a habit as a child that we'll get into in this 5 minutes. It's very important to the story. But so I took my little brother out to all the various South Bend bars. I think he was 19 at the time, so we gave him an old ID that I had of my oldest because he had long hair. I no longer had long hair. No longer had hair. We were bombed at 1 in the morning, and on our way back to the Holiday Inn, we were mugged. And not only were we mugged, I'd forgotten this part. Not only were we mugged, but we were mugged. And my brother, I could remember looking at the look on my little brother's face. Oh, he's hanging out with me. And he was thinking the same thing. Oh, I'm hanging out with Gary. We're going to get killed. So what happens when you hang out with your older brother? Get shot in South Bend, Indiana. And somehow I talked this gunman. I explained to him that we were both like, broke college kids. We had no money. Didn't get to talk our way out of some of it. But when we got back to the Holiday Inn, we met up with Steve because his tour bus was there, and I was like, well, we have to go into the Holiday Inn bar where like the band was just like ripping. So BB King is like he had just either played a show or on his way to a show, but this is like my only experience with BB King. I saw the side of a tour bus that said bright pink 1980s type letters. BB King. So hanging out with BB King. And I knew that I had somehow hung out with you. That was like the extent of my memory that I had hung out. And the next day, blind drunk, we were going to a family wedding. So, and it was raining. When we got to the Holiday Inn bar, we were drenched. And I was like wet, shaking. And then we stumbled back to my parents. Today you didn't have money, so you just stayed with your parents. And in the morning, we're right. In the morning, in the pull-out couch, I woke up out of one eye, one pop eye. I look up and I see my longest. She had surprised in a visit, like she had coordinated with folks or whoever to find out what hotel we were staying, why we were there, the whole night. And I was like, Katie, what are you doing? I'm looking at my little brother laying beside me. And I threw off my blanket. And so I'm looking at my long-term girlfriend, and as a child, I was known for being fed. And so I look over at my little brother, look up at my girlfriend, and he's like, but that was just a look on his face. And instead of saying anything to me, he looks down at me, looks up at my girlfriend, and goes, rainbow. That's the end of the story. He's trying to cover. He's like wingman, but it only rained in one part. You know that part with my squeaking black. So that's the story of the night I met BB King. Anyways, first off, I'm going to introduce Monica. Monica is the director at Open Source Gallery. Open Source Gallery has been here for how many years? 15 years. And it's coming up on a big summer. Are you doing the thing this summer, the Soapbox Derby? So every summer there's a Soapbox Derby. It's going to be down 17th Street. A bunch of other programs happening. But just hands together for Monica, who's going to talk a little bit about this month and next month.
Nope. Don't remember. I did. We are in this exhibition, the exhibition of Frank Shore. That's by Carolyn Hall and Miranda McLeod. It's a exhibition about climate change. There's definitely some very fun elements, but it's also very kind of dark. What doesn't happen at 2100 that we have there. All these things. So anyway, I wanted to announce also an open call that we have. That's for something that we call open sound now, because this is called quarantine jams, because we started it during the pandemic. It's a concert series that we do outside. This year we actually find funding for it, so pay the money. Yeah, please apply to the open call if you are a musician or if you know anybody that is a musician. Yeah. Maybe this weekend is also a workshop. Next month is with water drill. Coming up.
So I'm about to get on camera. I just want to make sure you can hear me okay. Hi. So, oral tradition. When Terence asked me to do this, of course, the media will jump at it. Oral tradition and storytelling are definitely not what I'm used to doing as a poet. We have poems, choose our poems, and I ask your grace. I'm doing what I think is a story that was many stories of vignettes that have one message. And the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that things have been so hard lately, and death has been on our minds so much. I mean, the world pandemic isn't something that any of us can get. And I have been thinking about the Mexican days that died in a different way. Thank God for Disney sometimes. Because having a little girl who watches this movie reminds me that the Mexicans know that in order to remember the name of people, for them to live forever in happiness, is that their name is spoken. They're not forgotten. And I think of my dear friend who has walked through very good. And I think of the Irish folk. And there are some who say and contend that the tradition of the Irish folk actually came from a period of time where there was a rare disease where people were thought to be dead. And then suddenly seemed to come back alive 24 hours later. So this tradition started, according to this oral tradition story, that people would say, okay, they can still hear us. They might come back. Let's celebrate them. Let's drink them. Let's tell stories of their lives. Let's celebrate. And to be honest, I may not be Irish, but a little part of me wants to be because it feels like even if death seems so absolute, to be celebrated that way is beautiful and amazing. I think of the Japanese who say that clothing 1,000 white origami cranes guaranteed. And I sort of, as a poet, figuratively folding cranes all day in the wish that tonight, when I tell the story of my mother and that I do her honor. Okay. Which brings me to my own background. And, when someone passes away, different ways we live, and then big prayers where we're truly supposed to. And in some ways, more than it's everything. Have not let go. In other ways, I really. And the truth is, the way I do not let go is storytelling. I'm going to honor her tonight, but it's much more even to this day, when friends of mine are in trouble. I know we don't all get lucky to have friends we adore. Hopefully we all are lucky enough to have them. And we'll have moments where we lose, but their stories, what they tell us, what we see, those things. So to tell this story tonight, I have to tell you that sometimes a story doesn't begin at the beginning. It begins in the middle. And somewhere in the middle is me in London, just before we found out that the monster and I was just old enough that she made that massive leap with some rare mother taking a friend. We were running around London into stores that had more non-Indians than Indians buying clothes that were Indian, and we were arm in arm and hand in hand. And it wasn't because they were trying to tell us or tell my mother that she was so beautiful and young. People genuinely looked at us and said, are you really mother and daughter? Because of the way we would bow our heads close and talk and giggle and laugh. And we went to see the crown jewels. and in line to see the crown jewels, I started talking as loudly as I could, almost shout talking, about the fact that they weren't British. That diamond's from India. Why aren't they talking about this? Is it going to be there when I walk in? And I kind of already knew it wasn't going to be there. Very few cultures admit their history, especially when they're not pretty. And my darling mother said to me, lower your voice. You're speaking so loudly. And I spoke back even louder. I said, I'm speaking loudly on purpose because I want everyone in line before they go in to know what isn't written about the jewel. And I continued to do that, even though I could tell she didn't particularly want me to do it, but she didn't ask me to go in my voice. She wanted me to get louder and louder and pronounce everything I could. I think as a diamond. Before that, she taught me an even harder lesson about being brave and speaking up, even if she wasn't enough. I was in college, I was an undergrad, and I had this wonderful professor who, surprise, surprise, being an English professor myself and a lover of language and a poet, gave me a B on an English paper, and I was mad at her. So what did I do? I mustered my strength, and I went to go talk to her. Maybe it's ironic that he had a slight British accent. When I went in with everything I could muster in myself, talked to him. Early 90s. And it was almost caricature. Temple his hands, put them under his nose so I couldn't see his face, and he leaned back while I said to him, why did you give me that grade? I don't think I earned that grade. And I went on. After I finished, and he was very patient, he said, how long did it take you to write that paper? And it jarred me. It felt very much like something my mother would ask. And I said, that's irrelevant. Isn't the product that matters? And he said, no, it's much more than that. It's true. And I know you wrote that quickly. And yes, I gave A's to people who maybe didn't write that. And he told me my final paper is salary, my higher grade. I could write anything, as long as it was about something I hadn't known before that I came to do. And I went home, I got angry, and I told my mother, can you believe this man did this to me? It is so unfair the way we women are treated. I'm not sure he didn't do that because I was proud. And what is he doing? Why is he giving these boys I know in the class who didn't write as well a good grade? And this is pretty English. That's the story I told the time. And I expected her to jump on board. She didn't. She got very, very still. Very, very quiet. I don't know if you know people like this, but if my mother got very, very still and very, very quiet, something was coming. And it was never rage. It was something big that was going to change my life. I asked her, why are you so quiet? Why aren't you saying anything? And she told me that she had no idea that she had raised me to be so selfish. And such a, she said, not once. Oh, you're ranting and raving and self-righteous. And there's a lot to go, selfish. A lot of way to go for women, for people of color, all of that. But not once did you acknowledge the women and the other people who were ready to fought for you. And you were making this bold. It was pretty devastating. But she was telling me the truth, but I still remember that. And that final paper I wrote, I had learned, Professor Martin, Dr. Martin, and my mother, that if I ever wanted to rebel, I should. But never would it mean anything to me. And what I wrote about was, if we want to fight and be brave, it should never be for immediate satisfaction. That even if it meant it was never going to be in my lifetime, if I really meant what I was fighting for, that I had to see the Janus, the Greek forward and backward. Look at what had come before me and had already been done. Truly inhabit the moment I was in and think about the future, even if it meant it wouldn't be for me in my lifetime. Only then was it worth fighting. So I mentioned that she got sick. And she had a very rare form of cancer. Put it simply, it was a crash course in medicine and studying and research that I'm sure anyone who gets sick themselves or who has someone they love get sick goes through. And my mother was an OBGYN and a doctor herself. And she kind of knew what was coming. She had a funny way of knowing it. Kind of like the birds born, but no one calls the birds that much. And put it simply, all kinds of tumors you could get in cancer, 11% of any kinds of tumor are sarcomas. And the kind of sarcoma she had was one of that 11%. And there was no way known to treat it. And she was given less than a year to live. She did not live 1 year after that. She lived longer. She lived longer than anyone who's ever been diagnosed with sarcoma. Because she fought. She was cut pubis to sternum for open body radiation. She did everything. Try. And in fact, even dying. This is so likely, even dying. She was setting new standards for what others would be able to do. And I remember that day, flying back and forth to New York to Cleveland every week. And I remember the day her doctor and her team had to give her the news. She sat there. And they couldn't do it. They kept coming in forgive me, I have to stand up for a second. They kept coming in, and as they started to speak, the nurses and doctors just started crying and walked out again. And this kept happening. Just like in London, or other circumstances. I reached for her hand, and we held each other's hands. She looked at me. And we knew. We knew just from the way they couldn't deliver it, that they had fallen in love with her too. And they didn't want to say there was nothing more they could do. And my mother looked at me with these eyes. And anyone who's ever met my mother knows that my eyes can't do nearly what hers did. She could make her eyes so big, it was like you were being swallowed by the universe. And you knew you were in trouble. Those weren't the eyes that day when we left school. We didn't have to speak. When I went to go hug her, and I realized I couldn't cry. I had to try to be as strong as her. When I got up to move towards her, she stopped me. And I didn't realize till much later what a gift that was. Because if I had hugged her, I wouldn't have been able to. In fact, when the doctors delivered the news, she hugged them and comforted them while they cried. In Indian culture, and some other culture, when you get old and you get sick, for thousands of years, you're supposed to accept it. And you gracefully say, my time is up, and you quietly disappear. My mother was no doubt raised by that. And I watched many of her friends, who I knew well, when they got sick, they disappeared. But not my mother. Her body disappeared, except for this huge tumor in her belly. She wasted away. She and my dad had a great faith. Good faith, I should say. But I should also say Hindu faith is not as good as any other faith. I was very small. And my mother told my father, I want a huge puja, which is a person. My father said, if that's what you want, and they invited us. Not everyone could say. We could have a much bigger house than anyone. And my mother further surprised me by she had her wig on, but she didn't dress up. She wore nice clean clothes. She had like an overcoat that was warm and long modest pajamas that were clean underneath for oxygen, and she sat there while the prayers were said. And when you have a puja in the home, everyone gets to go up and offer arti, which is a plate with fruit and flame, and everyone gets to individually say, please bless us. And because we were the family hosting this, and my mom wanted this, we were the first family to do this. And when the time came, I rushed to my mother's side to help her get up. She shooed me with it. And others, friends of hers, family, everyone rushed. She pulled the oxygen out of her bed. She pulled off her wig. She took off her overcoat. She did the 3 steps. And then I tried to help her back. Any of us tried to help her back. My brother, my father, and I. She leaned on us a little bit, wouldn't. She wanted to make it her call. She didn't say it, but it was clearly vague. I knew my mother well. And she was saying, I came into this world as I am, I will leave it as I am. And I don't care who sees me. But even in that, she shot her community. I could only see the wisp of her dark, wavy hair that were left when she took off that wig. She didn't. Oral tradition. The stories we tell. I was told when she first died that sometimes the way I would speak about her, because it was so fresh. But at least one friend of mine who I adore said, "You're making other people uncomfortable." I said, "That's okay. I'm going to do this anyway. I want everyone who ever goes through it to know it's been a journey. Probably we should speak. I don't know if I will ever be as brave as her. I try. I try every day. And even doing this today is part of that. I don't know what you say. Maybe, you are being too much. But I'm definitely. And all of us will go through this. We will all lose people we adore. And we admire. And all I can do with my story today is to wish you bravery. Kind of bravery that I was lucky enough to witness share with you today. And wish you. I know I